welcome to another Ready Moveset Go spinoff. As always, I'm your host John at Room 100, and this is my final video in the RMG series. With the show concluded, I wanted to make one final compilation of my movesets for the show, giving my movesets their own time to shine and finalizing my list of movesets for this era of the channel. In this episode, I'll be covering episodes 11 through 14. This is one less episode than usual, but I'll still have plenty to share with you as some of these themes lend themselves to tons of exploration. Without further ado, starting out with the only theme here I didn't have a backup for. In episode 11, we covered retro gaming characters. This is obviously a bountiful category, one that we limited in definition up to the 2000s. This was no issue for me though, as I had narrowed down my choice pretty quickly, hailing from the year 1982. Taizo Hori, the protagonist of Namco's Dig Dug. Fitting in scale with other classic protagonists like Mario and Mega Man and wielding a hefty drill, Taizo would be a bit slower and less agile than those two, but pack a big punch. All normal attacks would use this drill, with a weak stab for the jab and drilling for a rapid jab, swipes for F tilt and up tilt, drilling the ground to trip opponents with down tilt, and dashing while drilling with some rocks flying off, providing some armor with dash attack. Aerials would use the drill in similar ways. The rest of the moveset begins to use his other iconic elements as well as a selection of special elements from the less often remembered Dig Dug sequels. His grab would be a tether grab, introducing his harpoon, using weak pumps to pummel enemies and throwing them with swings or drill hits. F-smash would charge by drilling in front of him while the actual attack is done by a large falling rock, feeling like Bayonetta's down smash. Up smash is a single shot upwards like Falco's up throw using the ray gun from Dig Dug arrangement, and down smash is demolition inspired by Dig Dug 2. Using a cartoony detonator, small explosions would move outwards from Taizo on both sides, carrying enemies into a final massive eruption. The harpoon comes back as Taizo's signature move with his neutral B. Kind of like a ranged command grab, you would shoot it out in front of you, locking an enemy in place of hit. Tapping B again will inflate the fighter, making them flash with damage and grow slightly larger while keeping their regular proportions. After 4 or 5 pumps, if the enemy can't escape, they'll explode, taking massive damage. Side B is called Ghost. This fires a slow hovering projectile that will either deal weak damage and stun enemies upon impact, or spawn a Dig Dug enemy if touching the floor. It will either spawn a Puka, which will jump with a basic melee strike, or a Figar, breathing fire to keep enemies in place. Up B is called Tunnel, feeling kind of like Sora's side B but slower and stronger. You'll quickly dig forward with up to 3 turns as rock and dirt burst out from the drill, dealing additional damage in the front or falling behind you to stop enemies chasing you down. And down B is the Robo from Dig Dug arrangement, wandering around before exploding like a Mecha Koopa. It will also explode if struck hard enough, or explode even larger and deadlier if you can fully pump it up with your harpoon. And final smash is called Lower the Stakes, inspired by Digging Strike having huge drill stakes fall from the sky. At the time, I'd pitched Dig Dug as the next character Bandai Namco could bring to Smash. We now see they chose Kazuya and Tekken for that honor, so while I would like to see Dig Dug represented in Smash as more than a cameo, I wouldn't hold my breath. Moving on to episode 12, this one is a bit different as we didn't introduce new characters to the roster. Instead, we decided to look at current fighters who either needed an update or total overhaul and rework them with a fresh moveset. There are a lot of really good candidates for this spot. Ganondorf is probably the most requested rework, making clones and semi-clones more unique, or characters like Samus and Inkling, as done in the episode to reflect their arsenal and gameplay even more. But I was drawn to characters that I felt weren't necessarily bad on the roster, but who lacked the character's true personality in their appearance and moveset. Therefore, my main choice was Bowser. Truth be told, I've never really liked Bowser's personality in the Smash adaptation. You see a little bit of what I like in moments of Subspace Emissary, but for the most part he comes off as a dumb monstrous lizard with his moveset feeling more like a Rampage style cartoony kaiju. But throughout most of Mario's history, Bowser has had a huge front and center personality, a comical villain taunting Mario and grabbing for power while not being pure evil compared to someone like Ganondorf. All his generic roars, bites, wild claws, slashes, they just don't feel right to me. Plus the moveset is a tad outdated as well, primarily pulled from a few older games. So this was my attempt to modernize Bowser and give him a more accurate personality in his attacks, voice, and overall animation. For the most part, I'll be keeping basic moves similar enough but with different animations, still remaining physical attacks. Bowser does use tech like vehicles in some instances, but with Bowser Jr. covering that in his moveset, Bowser will mainly be a close-range tank while adding a few iconic ranged options. Jab is a 1-2 slash, F tilt is a big punch, up tilt is a bite, down tilt is a low slash, and dash attack has him run like in Mario 64, ending in a big slash from Super Mario RPG. His grab and throws will mostly stay the same, though I could give him a cargo carry, but I think we can leave that for DK. A lot of his aerials will be pulled from Super Mario RPG, with a slash for nair and 2 moves expanding his shell spikes in up and back air. In the game he actually shoots them out, but I think I just want them to kinda get long here, with the kind of stretchy cartoonish allowance in animation that Mario gets. Along with those, fair is a triple blast of flame balls seen in the newer 2D Mario games, and dare is a single big flame blast down from Super Mario Bros. 3. For smash attacks, we'll see a few other moves and specials get moved around to here. F smash is his flamethrower, formerly his neutral B and seen in many games. It will function similarly, but dealing more damage and lasting a set amount of time, more like Mii Gunner's F smash. Up smash pulls from his final appearance in Super Mario Bros. 1 with a hammer throw. Throwing a hammer in short arc above and in front of him, this wouldn't have a ton of range but would be very deadly. And down smash would be the primary use of his shell spin, fitting a little better here as a lower attack covering all sides. For specials, we start with neutral B, adding in his most confusingly missing element from all of Mario, the fireball. I have no clue why the flamethrower is in this spot in the real moveset. Instead, with this, he would hold still for about the same time as Sephiroth's weakest flare and fire a big fireball forward, dealing lots of damage without much knockback. The stronger knockback would come from his side B, the spike bomb, seen in many games but as recently as Odyssey. This would be a rolling spiky ball that would either explode on contact or after a short while. Up B would keep his Mario 3 spirit alive, switching out his down B's Bowser bomb. Here it would feel a little more like DDD, flying up into the air and quickly slamming down. And much like side B, with down B I wanted to really make him feel like an intimidating boss character, bringing in the shockwave. Seen in many 3D games, Bowser would stomp his foot down, sending a low ring blast forward along the ground. It could be jumped over like Terry's power wave, but has a strong stun on impact. And for his final smash, I think they got it fairly right in feel, having Bowser grow massive for a big targeted attack, but I don't really need it to be a scary Giga Bowser. Keep him a little more cartoony, maybe light the stage on fire while he's there, or maybe even incorporate Fury Bowser to make it intimidating but more accurate. Most of the roster is constructed beautifully and offers great representation of these franchises, but there are areas like with Bowser that I think could be a little better. Bowser isn't the only big Mario adversary I worked on for this spot though. My other consideration for a personality revamp was Donkey Kong. I shared this thought with Pizza Dude, who provided his own moveset in the episode, and we had a lot of similarities in our concerns and changes. Actually, Donkey Kong might even have it a little worse than Bowser because of how long he's been around in Smash. See, in the original Smash, it's clear that DK was basically just designed as Smash's signature heavyweight. Many of his moves are just big brawling attacks with no correlation to the character. Even as time went on and more games came out giving Donkey Kong more and more of a distinct personality, in Smash he always felt the same, a beefy bruiser and grappler. No goofy voice and no stylish flair that's become a big part of DK's current feel. Because of that, I also made some updates for DK to make him less of a generic ape and more of an acrobatic heavyweight, with a big emphasis on movement and flow. Some of his moves could stay the same. There's a lot of claps and aerial attacks drawn from Jungle Beat that do match his vibe and have a good utility, so if anything, I'll just move them around a little bit. However, other games needed much more representation, such as Donkey Kong 64 brought in with his jab being its 3-hit combo. A punch and slap with one hand into a 2-hand ground slam. Dash would also come from here, being the double kick. F tilt is a hammer fist, up tilt is an overhead swipe, and down tilt would change to a DDD style roll, helping him keep consistent movement. This is another core DK move coming from Donkey Kong Country, formerly his dash attack. His grab could stay the same as the cargo carry works for him, and aerials would only need slight tweaks. A clap for fair instead, an uppercut for up air, and a double kick that bounces you off of enemies for dare. For smash attacks similar to Bowser, I moved some specials here to make the specials more dynamic and unique. F smash would become the giant punch, up smash remains the same, and down smash becomes a spammable conga hand slap. Now for his neutral special, again like Bowser, another confusingly absent move, the barrel throw. Donkey Kong would spawn and hurl a big wooden barrel just like his original game, rolling along the ground and exploding on impact. Side B would become Vine Swing, having him quickly swing on a vine, giving him a ton of momentum. This would kind of feel like Diddy Kong's Side B, along with tapping B again to turn the move into a kick. Up B is Barrel Blast, encasing DK in a floating barrel and aiming before launching him in a given direction. And down B is the Coconut Gun, somewhere between Diddy and K. Rool's neutral Bs in terms of speed and power, but allowing you to aim up and down. I'm not really sure what his new final smash would be. It could stay kind of the same, could include a Rambi charge on stage, or involve a horde of bananas in some way. Regardless, DK is another fighter that I would love to see reworked in the future. The next few movesets are gonna be a little weird. Episode 13, featuring Push Dustin, was all about fourth party fighters, fictional characters who originated outside of video games. This was inspired by Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, and given even more weight now with this whole Warner Bros. Multiverses rumor. We did set the rule that the character had to have appeared in a video game before, and for me personally, I wanted to pick a franchise that had a big legacy in gaming. With games like Battlefront, Rogue Squadron, Force Unleashed, Knights of the Old Republic, and many more, I immediately knew that Star Wars was one of my top choices. And while there may be other characters more relevant to the individual games, or characters made specifically for the games like Starkiller and Cal Kestis, the clear logical choice for this spot is one of the most iconic villains of all time, Darth Vader. We have a good few classic villains on the roster already, and Darth Vader would kind of feel like a combination of them. Slow and powerful like Ganondorf, some quicker saber attacks like Sephiroth, and some forcey floatiness like Mewtwo. Implementing Darth Vader in a way that isn't broken is kind of tough actually, with his suite of force powers and his lightsaber, a weapon that is a one-hit kill in the movies or attacks in flurries with little knockback in many games. With this in mind, I made weaker moves quicker, flourishy lightsaber slashes, focusing on slow, force-driven kill moves for the stronger attacks. The majority of basic attacks would be with the lightsaber. 2 sideways slashes and a downwards diagonal slash from Battlefront 2 for jab, a spinning slash moving you slightly backwards for F tilt pulled from Masters of Terras Kasi, an upwards diagonal slash for up tilt, a downward stomp kick for down tilt from Terras Kasi or Soul Calibur 4, and a force lunge and outward slash from Battlefront 2 for dash attack. Some more basic moves would show some of his force abilities, like his shield animation holding his hand out like force blocking the moves, and his double jump being a large force jump after a low first jump. Nair would be a close range figure 8 slash, while all other aerials would basically be pulled from Sephiroth. A stabbing fair, wide slashes for up and back air, and a plunging stab for dare. Starting to introduce the force more, his grab is force pull. This would be a pretty unique move in Smash, as it pulls enemies into the move regardless of whether or not they actually get pulled close enough to be physically grabbed. As an additional use, force pull would pull items towards you as well, bringing it into your hand if close enough. He would then squeeze the pummel and use a mix of slashes and force throws for his throws. The coldest one I want to mention is down smash, putting the enemy down and igniting his saber through them, crumpling them like Ridley's down B, because damn. His smash attacks include Heavy Strike from Battlefront 2 as his F smash, a single deadly lightsaber swing fueled by the Force, an upwards Force Blast for up smash, and Force Eruption from Force Unleashed as down smash, blasting surrounding players with a bubble of energy. Getting into his specials, we pull from abilities that usually make up his movesets in his various video game appearances. What else would Neutral B be other than Force Choke? This is a mid-range command grab closest in field to Ganondorf's side B. Vader would grab and choke the enemy, consistently racking up damage, then have 2 choices on how to end the move if they can't mash out in time. Pressing forward would perform a huge force push, sending your opponent across the stage and using them as a projectile against others. Pressing down would instead crumple them to the ground. Side B is Saber Throw, similar to Pyra but without a strong finishing hit, flying further away, and able to be curved up or down before you throw. You'd also be able to act while this is thrown, performing weak physical hits or single force strikes. Up B is Force Push and Force Jump, depending on if you use it on the ground or in the air. On the ground you'll do a huge force push forward with a little damage and massive knockback, and in the air it will basically act as a third jump, slightly better than your double jump. You're not really meant to be in the air as Vader, but you can charge the moves and make them a little stronger and larger. Vader. And your down B is Saber Block, the hardest move to balance of the lot. I considered adding a force meter, but I think it could be balanced so you don't need it. This would have you block incoming attacks from the front while walking, acting as a counter and reflector. It would only reflect one physical attack before using a counter strike, but projectiles get a little more complicated. I think you would be able to reflect any amount of weak projectiles, but only one strong projectile, dictated by a certain amount of damage. It would also have some rough end lag, making you more cautious when using it to not get grabbed. Lastly, his final smash is the Death Star. This could be a cutscene, but I think it would be cooler to have it appear in the background of the stage and have its blast move from background to foreground kind of like Midgard, enveloping the whole stage and having insane kill power. Darth Vader is an icon of pop culture, and Star Wars has been no slouch at providing high quality video games over the years, even on Nintendo consoles, so I thought he'd be a great fit. But there are a couple other characters that I prepared for the episode. Now this one was out of left field, even to me when I thought of it. I don't know why, but it took me a while to even consider board games, despite my sizable collection and their closeness to the core of video games. When I finally started thinking about it though, I considered how Pac-Man kind of represents Namco as a whole in his moveset and taunts, and wondered what board game mascot could possibly compare. I realized there was only one real answer, a character who could represent all of Hasbro and one of the biggest board games ever. Mr. Monopoly from Monopoly. No stranger to video games himself, but Mr. Monopoly is rarely seen in an active role, primarily serving as a mascot in animations or kind of running the game. Still, there was more than enough in the game of origin, Hasbro games as a whole, and video game history that I thought it could work. Mr. Monopoly would be a little slow with middling strength, making him rely on the dumb luck of some of his moves and primary gimmick: money. With his stage entrance being pass and go, you'd start the game with $200. You'll lose money as you take damage and gain money when you dish it out. This money comes into play to buff your attacks. You'll receive a small flat buff to all attacks with the more money you have, and charged attacks like smash attacks will gain an additional charging phase, which will drain money until released, but powers up your attacks to a frankly ludicrous amount. Let's get into the actual attacks now. Jab is a simple smack with his cane, spammable but weak with no finishing move. F tilt is a slice with his hat, turning silver to look like the player token. Up tilt is an uppercut wearing the luxury tax ring. Down tilt is a stomp with his shoe, also turning silver like the token. And dash attack is a rushing charge with a silver wheelbarrow full of money. Nair would be another cane smack. Fair is a stab with the thimble. Up air is an electric company light bulb zap. Baird throws a cat out that lingers as a multi-hit after you fall. And Dare is a plummet riding on the community chest. His grab would utilize the Scotty dog, running out to fetch an opponent and bringing them back for you to pummel with your cane. You can then send them forward with a marching penguin multi-hit, up launching them off a rocking horse, back hitting them with a passing car, and down slamming them with an iron. F smash is a blast with the cannon piece with immense damage at the base and launching a cannonball like Bowser Jr. Up smash is a hearty swing with a sack of money putting it on his shoulder, and down smash brings in other Hasbro games with a low trajectory bite from a hungry hippo. Moving on to the specials, these begin to get a little tricky in trying to convert the core tenets of Monopoly into a smash moveset. Neutral B is called Property. This allows you to plant a colored trap on the board that deals damage to enemies who pass over it. By charging the move and spending money, you're able to put increasingly larger houses down, dealing more damage, with the strongest being a hotel that simply explodes, dealing massive damage. These properties would stay on the board but have a built-in countdown until they disappear, spending the money you put into it and money it made from people passing over. Let's get even more complicated with Side B. Dice roll. Mr. Monopoly throws 2 projectile dice out in front of him, which can land between 1 and 6. Depending on the number, each will be a different effect, and each dice counts separately unless the same number is rolled, which will perform a more powerful version of the number's attack. A 1 will spawn a duck, which wanders the stage quacking for minimal damage but interrupting enemy moves. 2 1s will instead spawn a T-Rex, rampaging the stage with powerful bites until disappearing. 2 will spawn a Jenga block, able to be knocked around as a blunt projectile, while double 2 spawns a whole Jenga tower that acts as a destructible obstacle and sends tons of projectiles flying. 3 will freeze the surrounding floor, and double 3s will freeze surrounding players, inspired by games like Don't Break the Ice. 4s are based on color matching games, with a single 4 creating a twister zone that reverses controls, and double 4s forcing struck players to follow its exact commands or receive damage, inspired by Simon Says. 5 is a burst of flame, with 2 5s being a battleship volley, sending multiple missiles dropping onto the stage in that area. Finally, a 6 drops a chance card with random effects like healing, drawing a weak item, or poisoning you, while double 6s is the most powerful. a get out of jail free card. The way that works is if you are sent out of the blast zone and have this card on you, you will be released back on stage with the same damage but without dying. Moving on to simpler moves, up B is Railroad, running straight sideways on the ground like Minecart or sideways or diagonally in the air. And up B is Jail, dropping kind of like Mousetrap and basically acting as a bury or freeze move, trapping enemies in a cage. His final smash is called Bankruptcy, a cutscene having enemies run along the Monopoly board, gaining damage and getting caught on Boardwalk to be destroyed. You could have a ton of fun with a board game, party game type of moveset like this, and there's tons of aesthetic elements he could bring to the table too. He could have a taunt that pulls out a random game piece like a Scrabble F, a Lollipop from Candyland, Magnifying Glass from Clue, Spinner from Life, a Rubik's Cube, etc. And his alts could either be based on the color of properties and other Monopoly elements, or other board games. And that just leaves my final fourth party backup moveset. Man, this episode aged way better than I expected. I mean, obviously this was inspired by the Nickelodeon game, but then word came out about the Warner Bros. One featuring a character from the video, Sora got in when we discussed how Disney could be shown in Smash, and Buzz Lightyear is getting a solo movie. But going back to that Warner Bros. Game, one of the other characters on that roster was DC's Batman. He's a lot more than a Warner Bros. Character though. He's a comic book and superhero icon, and another big name in gaming in no small part due to the Arkham games. So how would this billionaire by day, vigilante by night work in Smash? My core concept for Batman was a gadgety brawler. He'd have tons of physical moves that flowed into combos with each other fairly easily, while also adding in classic gadgets to give him some range and disorienting elements. Playing Batman would be about knowing when to strike and knowing when to back off and create space, as you're pretty strong but just a human after all. His jab would have two combo variants, tapping 3 or 5 times. The 3 is a punch-punch uppercut, while the 5 has 2 punches, 2 kicks, and a clasped hand slam. F tilt is a 3-kick combo, up tilt is an uppercut with the blades on his arm, down tilt is a low kick, and his dash attack is a flying knee strike. His aerials pull heavily from his beat-em-up appearances, along with using his cape's glide feature as a semi-hover. Nair is a standard kick, fair is a spinning back kick, up air a front high kick, bear his evade double kick, and dare a diving stomp down to the stage. His grab would be a tether with the Bat Claw, bringing enemies in and pummeling with punches. F throws a fall forward, up uses the Bat Claw to throw up and slam off the ground, back a sweep kick and punch, and down a big punch finisher. 2 smash attacks are also big physical strikes with a front kick for F smash and spinning hook kick for up smash on the diagonal. Down smash would use the cape stun from the Arkham games, striking with his cape and leaving enemies immobile in front of him for a moment. To get into his gadgets with his specials, B is the Batarang. Tapping will throw a fast, simple projectile with moderate damage, while charging throws a sonic Batarang which will stun enemies. Side B throws out smoke pellets, creating a huge cloud of smoke that will highlight all players inside except for you. I think you could throw 2 of these out at a time. Up B uses the grapnel gun, similar to Joker's Up B. You'll either bring enemies down to you on the ground with a strike or tether to the stage. And down B uses explosive gel, planting basically a C4 onto the stage like Snake. And his final smash will vary depending on if you're on the ground or in the air, using the Batmobile or Batwing in a similar cutscene to Captain Falcon. Batman would be a super cool fighter to add, but wasn't as interesting a choice to me as Vader or Monopoly despite his gaming legacy. There were, of course, an infinite number of possibilities, with a few I took into consideration. I did technically make a moveset for Scott Pilgrim, but I was saddened to find that the game lacks any real rhythmic elements, so he was just kind of a boring beat-em-up fighter. The fourth party character I would be most okay with being in Smash is Spider-Man, another superhero with a storied gaming history, but I have technically made a moveset for him before, so it wouldn't have counted, plus Brawlfan just made a really good moveset as well. There was also the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a souped up version of Pyro and Mithra, Squidward from SpongeBob because they didn't put him into All-Stars Brawl, and lastly I considered doing a Bionicle, probably Tahu or Takanuva. There are video games, and as a kid who didn't fully understand what Smash was, I think I made movesets for Bionicles, making them my first ever movesets, but they were a bit niche to spend time on and not as interesting as the main 3. Now we've arrived at the last episode, and what better theme could there have been besides final bosses? A lot of the themes in this compilation honestly didn't have as much of an overarching gameplay theme for me as others. Being a retro character or a revamped Smash fighter or a fourth party fighter doesn't exactly bring a specific gameplay style to mind like something like Spear or Ice does. However, the more I looked at villains for this episode, the more I saw certain similarities. A final boss character was likely to be powerful, but with lots of end lagged and telegraphed openings for enemies to get in, along with just huge moves that turn the entire stage into their arena for certain attacks, making them top priority. There's plenty of excellent choices, but I went with a character that also counted as an assist trophy upgrade and an upgraded Echo Fighter, Dark Samus from the Metroid Prime games. While some moveset similarities to Samus are impossible to avoid based on their build and fighting style, I've always thought Dark Samus had more than enough unique attacks to be her own fighter, fitting my idea of final boss in Smash perfectly. Faster movement speed and stronger but slower attacks, making her easier to knock around and disrupt, but deadly if you fail. I've also always thought her palette swaps could be better, pulling from various enemies and bosses from Metroid. Her jab would be similar enough, with a cannon strike and claw. F-tilt and up-tilt would both use phase-on, with forward being a phase-on slash, and up making a tentacle slash upwards like in Prime 3 and her assist trophy. Down-tilt swipes the ground to send out a shockwave like in Prime and Prime 3, and her dash attack would mimic her Shine Spark charge in Prime 3. Nair would blast enemies with a floating energy ball surrounding her from Prime 2 and 3. Fair is a dash and claw attack moving her forward. Up and back are phase-on stabs and slashes, and Dare sends her flying downwards in a phase-on cannonball from Prime 2. Your grab would still be a tether, but I'm changing it to green like in Prime and having her drain energy like in Prime 2 for a pummel. Forward throw sends a clone out to slash the enemy in front of you. Up is the phase-on slash, back spawns a phase-on shard from Prime 3 to slam down into the enemy behind you, and down fires the ice spreader from Prime and Prime 2 to freeze the enemy and any close enough to the blast. Her smash attacks mostly come from the moves chosen for her assist trophy, with F smash being the shrapnel beam. Coming from Prime 2 and 3, you'd fire a volley of attacks like Meat Gunner, but you'd be able to tilt the move up and down while you fire. Up smash fires 3 homing phase-on orbs. The start of the move is basically a stronger Samus up smash, but if the orbs don't make contact upon exit, they'll begin tracking the closest enemy. And down smash is a phase-on barrier, kind of like the assist trophy, but looking more like this attack in Prime 2. Dealing damage very close to you and reflecting projectiles. Her specials would be specialized versions of Samus's, along with one specific for Dark Samus. B is the Charge Beam, but more accurately the Hyper Beam or Phase-On Beam. Hailing from all of the Prime trilogy, this is a massive laser with a slow startup and cooldown, but firing through the whole stage, much like Robin's Thoron. Side B is still your missile, with some modifications. Tapping fires a much quicker strong missile without the initial slowdown, but not traveling as far. Your homing missile would change a bit though, instead firing a volley of weaker, faster homing missiles more akin to the Seeker missiles. Up B is the Boost Ball from Prime 2, rocketing forward quickly and able to make 3 turns before stopping. Lastly is Dark Samus' most unique move. Down B is Clone from Prime 3. This would have her do a flip and create a CPU clone of herself that deals weaker damage and disappears in a few hits, but would be great for disorienting and overwhelming enemies. And her new final smash is called the Great Poison. The stage is covered in highly poisonous phase-on as you fully form into the Metroid Prime to attack enemies from the side with a controllable laser and automatic beam attacks. You could also have it just drop a huge Leviathan seed onto the stage like a meteor, but this felt more like how Smash Ultimate would do it. Even if she's not relevant to Metroid anymore, I would still love to see a fully realized Dark Samus in Smash. And for one more thing, while I did consider other bosses like King Boo, there was only one other boss character who I felt would be a fitting end for the series. Yes, Smash's own final boss character from Brawl, it's Tabuu. While Master Hand definitely has the fan vote in terms of a Smash original character getting onto the roster, I think there's more than a few people who would welcome Tabuu onto the roster with open arms. Fitting to his name, Tabuu would be a weird fighter to play, being a bit floaty, a heavier midweight, and having slow but powerful moves. Your main goal here would be spacing and keeping enemies away with a Sephiroth or Min-Min-like range. He could also represent other Smash original enemies in his palette swaps, with skins made for Galeem and Darkon, as well as the multi-man enemies in Melee and Brawl. The purple one in particular could either make him look more like the fighting Polygon team from Smash 64 or wireframe like those from Melee. I also think a potential gimmick could be Final Phase, basically like Lucario or some others, where past 100% your speed, power, and size would increase. His jab would start with a single chop upwards, either ending with a second or rapid jabbing with a volley of downwards chops pulled from his Tabuu smash attack. F-tilt would use Tabuu's shot with a quick burst of smaller bullets. Up-tilt slashes overhead with his Tabuu charge blade. Down-tilt floats slightly into the air and fires a large Tabuu shot explosion downwards. And his dash attack turns him into this weird shark thing with blade charge. Nair would be similar to Mewtwo, using the discharge attack to have electric energy orbs float around you and return. Fair is the actual Tabuu charge, dipping and slashing upwards. Up and back air are both attacks using his wings. and Dare hurls an explosive blast downwards. His grab uses the Tabuu chain as a tether grab, holding the enemy a slight distance away as you fire more chains into them for the pummel. Forward, back, and down throw are all versions of the chain throw, while up throw is more like Kirby, transforming him to use the movement throw and slam enemies off the ground. F smash is Tabuu fire, working like a fixed range stealth bomb. 3 bursts of combustion will appear in a row in front of you, highly deadly and able to be tilted up and down. Up smash is clone attack, sending a wave of projection clones out in an arc above you, and down smash is eye laser, firing at a downwards angle without a finishing move but doing tons of damage to someone caught in it. And for his specials, we start off with his most notorious move, Neutral B's off waves. This move is easily interrupted, but if fully activated, Tabuu will blast out deadly waves of energy all around him with tons of knockback. Side B is Tabuu Boomerang, firing a large shuriken that circles back to you. Up B is Warp, teleporting you with an explosion attack where you start and end. And down B is Shadow Laser, another longer charging move that spawns a shadowy dragon head to fire a laser across the stage. And his final smash is called Dark Wave, making Tabuu turn giant behind the stage and firing a huge off wave that turns fighters into trophies and sends them flying. I considered using the Great Maze Orb somewhere in here, but maybe that could just be his stage, a traveling stage through the different areas of Subspace Emissary before ending in its version of Final Destination. And concluding a Smash Bros. Moveset series, ending with a Smash Bros. Final boss only seems fitting. And just like that, Ready Moveset Go has come to a close. I won't go through my whole spiel from the episode again, but I do sincerely want to thank everyone who has watched this series. It was something that I thought would be impossible and yet turned into something I loved, and I'm so happy I was able to make it happen, along with the amazing help of PK King, Pizza Dude, Nanten, and all our guests. This won't be the end of movesets on my channel, and probably not the end of series involving the other guys, but I think it'll be a while before I pursue something like this again. Either way, I've adored this chance to make more movesets and dream about what Smash could be like. Let me know what your favorite moveset was here and what your favorite episode of Ready Moveset Go was. And stick around for the rest of the month, there's still more Smash videos to come. Be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.